Proportional Response. Book 1, Chapter 15, Part 7, The Other Shoe. 3 days. Enable woke to an insistent chime coming from his phone. He glanced at the window to see stars rather than sunlight. He slapped his phone to turn it off, but it continued. Then it got louder. He growled slightly in the back of his throat, forced his eyes to focus enough to see the clock. 5 in the morning. Exactly 5 in the morning. And my phone behaving that way means a summons to the council chambers. Damn you, Kilintar. I know your tail is in a knot after the Ruxa fed you your teeth, but still. He sighed deeply, sat up, and checked his phone. The fuzz of a mild hangover made it hard to read the message, but he managed it. At least the bastard isn't trying to claim it is an emergency session and expecting us to be there in under half an hour. He reached over to get a drink of water and pull out some hangover meds. Then his brain engaged a little more, and a wave of fury caused his head to double down on its ache. That rat bastard! I didn't drink enough last night to have a hangover, and it was the Sultan who hosted the party. Now that I think about it, both Kilintar and Jalad quietly disappeared somewhat early in the evening. Damned lizards must have put extra alcohol in the drinks too. Is there any end to the pettiness of those two? Another alarm sounded on his phone, and he reached out to quiet it. He went ahead and sent the acknowledgement that he'd gotten the message and would be in the council chamber on time. A polite knock came at the door. He didn't even get the chance to answer before the head of the embassy's chief secretary appeared. She noted that he had begun to move and seemed to nod in satisfaction to herself. Help. I see I'm getting stern mother, not helpful semi-obsequious aid, this morning. Come to think of it, do I ever get anything other than stern mother this early in the morning? She quirked an eyebrow at him in unspoken question as he stood and started towards the closet to change. He considered for a moment, then nodded and waved a hand.
Yes, go and wake them. I don't know what this is about, but it will probably be best to have him, or them, there. Tell them I will be in the communications room in 10 minutes. We should probably touch base with our allies before we walk into the council chamber.
20 minutes later, Enable took his seat in the council chambers. Kasla sat beside him, with the duchesses sitting behind. The door to their platform cycled closed, but did not lock. Kilintar is following the rules at least. He called a normal session, even if he did call it early. Probably just plans to stand there and bloviate at us about some inanity, to remind us all that he doesn't have to go through all the hoops of a special session to haul all of us in here. He looked around the chamber and saw that most of the other ambassadors seemed to share his sentiment. Most yawned or otherwise displayed tired irritation, and none seemed to expect anything important to happen. It took effort not to try to catch Henry's eye, but they still had to be careful about seeming too strongly allied. I wish I could find more comfort in the fact that he has no idea what this is about. If none of the allies know, then there probably isn't anything important, but... Oh shit. Kilintar sauntered. No, he strutted. Out to the Prime Minister's podium. That bastard looks far too proud of himself. He has something up his sleeve. If he was going to pitch banalities at us, he'd be walking in like he owned the place. Not like the... What is that human phrase? The feline who ate the cat. No, cat is feline. Oh bother. He took a look over at Jalad, and she smirked at him, then winked. Oh, also not good. He returned the gesture with a slow nod. A glance at Kaslo brought a single raised eyebrow and a shrug. Kilintar put both hands on the podium and began the near-ritual spiel to call the session to order. The lizard spoke with relish, a smile on his face, and his tail seemed to lash around behind him. The man is in a good mood. That can't be good news, not for any of us. Kasla seemed to read his mind and grimaced slightly, then turned back to the center of the chamber. Enable hit a couple of buttons on his display and checked to make sure that Kilintar had merely called a general session, then looked around to study the other ambassadors. Everyone sat with the studied patience of people who had heard the spiel far too many times before. The Arabso, Themig, and other known human allies had obviously caught Kilintar's good mood and looked a little nervous, but he doubted most could even tell. At length, far more length than strictly required by the protocols, Kilintar wound up the opening statements. The lizard stood there for a few moments, surveying the council chamber, seemingly intending to meet the eye of every ambassador, starting at the top of the chamber and working his way down. This put Henry at the end, of course, and when Kilintar's gaze fell there, the lizard's face widened in a broad smile. Hannibal took a quick survey of the other ambassadors, and found all eyes riveted on Henry's passive face. His human friend looked up at Kilintar, locked eyes with the lizard, and refused to react at all. Hannibal hit a button on his display so he could watch both Henry and Kilintar at once. He expected the Prime Minister to be a bit nonplussed by Henry's lack of reaction, but the lizard wasn't in the least disturbed. In fact, Kilintar's smile seemed to widen. Henry simply raised one eyebrow, as if to tell him to get on with it. Hannibal expected this to bring a snarl, or at least narrowed eyes, but Kilintar's smile only widened further, this time displaying most of his teeth. Be careful, Henry. Gillette may have pulled his fangs, but that just means that he only bites on her command now. He has something up his sleeve. Kilintar seemed satisfied that he'd delivered some sort of message, and finally turned to address the assembled ambassadors. He started with a placating tone.
I know. I pulled you all out of bed without warning. I would consider apologizing, but I would rather remind all of you that sending that summons means I had to get up even earlier than you did, and I was at the same gathering last night as all of you. So I will, instead, thank you all for your prompt response to the call. I would have called this meeting later in the day, but the matter we need to discuss is one of great importance, and is one which I believe will be the cause of lengthy debate and consideration. Indeed, I would not be at all surprised if our deliberations went on for some days, considering the amount of ground we have to cover. I have received a petition from the Exultan Republic to address the Council about an intent to expand its holdings. In accordance with Council procedures, I have called this assembly together to hear the Republic's statement of intent and allow debate to begin. Since it would be unseemly for me, as Prime Minister, to present such a statement myself.
As if that has ever stopped you before. Ha! Hannibal thought to himself. A shuffle both behind and around him let him know that others had the same thought. Kilintar continued.
I recognize the Zoltan Ambassador Jala and give her the floor that she may present it.
Wait, statement of intent? Expansion? What are these people playing at? So they plan to annex another world that isn't being used. Why would they bother? What are they going to do? Announce that they intend to annex a world and spend a century or two terraforming it? Unlikely, with the resources they are already pouring into war preparations. Might as well annex a death world. Hannibal shot Ramrod straight in his chair, feeling as if he had just been kicked in the backside. Death world? Oh no, Henry.